right, hello. My name is Brittany Barber, and I will be talking to you today about insecurity, which is actually one of my favorite things to talk about. So, we're going to get right into it. And I want to talk to you about Leah. Some of you automatically know who I'm talking about, but I'm talking about Leah, the one described as the one with the weak eyes. The text gets right into it concerning her. In Genesis 29, we're introduced to Leah, and we know that she is the daughter of Laban. She is the older sister of Rachel that Jacob falls in love with, and she's described as having weak eyes, right? So the text literally says, now Laban had two daughters, the name of the older Leah and the name of the younger Rachel. Leah had weak eyes, but Rachel had a lovely figure and was beautiful. And so we don't know exactly what weak means, right? Amplified says weak and dull eyes, right? So that can mean she just always looked tired. That can mean she was cockeyed. That can mean a bunch of different things. But the way it kind of makes sense in my mind for them to describe her as weak eyes, to me, that just kind of means she didn't see things clearly, right? As great as possible. And I think it's easy to read about the story of Leah and, not relate, right? If you feel like, oh, my eyes are good, I'm straight, right? Although I think every woman in some capacity, and even man, can relate to Leah, right? Because of the rejection that she experiences. But I think it's this idea of, in principle, not being able to see clearly, not being able to see yourself clearly, not being able to see the world clearly, right? Or a situation even clearly. So, and we see that applied with Leah, right? So she ends up being used as a power play by her father. Jacob was supposed to be wed to Rachel. And instead of going to bed at night with Rachel after the wedding ceremony, Laban sends in Leah. And so Jacob and her consummate the marriage, and he gets tricked. He works another 7 years to earn Rachel. But the Bible then says that in verse 31 of Genesis 29 says, and when the Lord saw that Leah was despised, which is such an intense thing to say, she was despised. Other translations say that she was hated. He made her able to bear children, but Rachel was barren, right? So, and when the Lord saw, this is verse 31, saw that Leah was despised, he made her able to bear children, but Rachel was barren. And that in and of itself is interesting because Rachel, the beautiful one, is barren, but Leah, the weak-eyed one, has this ability to produce, right? And not just produce children, but really like to help with the legacy of Jacob. Now, the excitement could have been right there, right? Like, man, I've been gifted this ability to birth children, but Leah's not satisfied in that. Leah goes on to have three sons that she's hoping will make Jacob love her. And each time Jacob does not love her. It would take until she got to her fourth son for her to finally get confident, right, in God as opposed to Jacob. But with each son, right, she's convinced that if I can do this thing, if I can produce something, it'll make Jacob give me what I want, give me what I need. There's a fixation with, I'm going to do this to get that. I'm going to perform in order to earn love. And that's the type of insecurity that I want to talk about today. So the dictionary defines insecure as not firmly fixed, liable to give way or break. But in regards to a person, insecure is referred to as or defined as not confident or assured, uncertain and anxious. Now, all of us, given, any type of issue or flaw or weakness in our life, have some type of insecurity, but I'm talking about a different type of insecurity today that I don't think we talk about enough. So God defines insecurity for me, right? I believe God defines insecure as security in anything other than him. It's to be in a secureness of something other than God. Because in God, we're secure, right? So if we're not secure, if we're insecure, it must mean that we're secure in something else other than him. And so that's what it is, right? Insecure is security in anything other than God. So it's the misplaced confidence we put in our performance. It's in the need we have for attention from others. It's our belief that we're worthy once we produce something, once we perform something, right? There's this reciprocity required to be good enough, right? Good enough comes with requirements and receipts, right? There's something that I got to be able to do to get the thing that I want from somebody. It's a security in something else other than God, because we didn't have to do a performance and jump through all of these tricks to get God. But what I really want to draw out today concerning insecurity is a lot of times we have an insecurity concerning our relationship with God. And it's something that's so critical that has to be addressed, because a lot of us are like Leah. We get tripped up in thinking, I've got to perform, right? I've got to do this thing to earn this love or keep this love. I want to do for you, God. I just want to do for you. I just want to be the best for you. I just want to do whatever you say, right? But mixed in with that, intertwined with that, can be this fixation with doing for God, as though we got to keep earning something, or to believe that we got to earn grace that he keeps saying that you never had to earn. The desire to please him is good. That makes you a child of God, but it can get very easily married with this insecurity about, if I don't do this, I'm not going to be good enough to God, right? Now, here's another place that it shows up. It shows up if we look at the Israelites in Numbers 11. So the Israelites, right? And I love reading about the Israelites because I think it's so easy to judge them. Like we're like the Israelites, right? I mean, if you really humble and reading it, you're like, oh man, I just got fully read, right? So Israelites, right, in Numbers 11 in your Bible, they're free from Egypt, right? Like, we know the Red Sea has been parted. Incredible things have happened, like just things that I can't imagine seeing and ever forgetting, right? But because we're human, we're flawed, right? So in Numbers 11, now manna has been falling from the sky. God has been leading them by a cloud. He's been leading them by fire, like fully, right? And in Numbers 11, these folks, our kin, right? This our family, they're part of our family. These people start complaining because at least I had meat when I was in Egypt. Now pause. It sounds petty. It sounds ridiculous. But I can get there, right? Because it's like when you, and I did this, right? It's like leaving a job for a job that you prayed for because you didn't like the old job. But then you get to the new job and you complain because it doesn't have the stuff from the old job that at least you liked, right? Like, I had prayed for this new job and couldn't stand the current job, get to the new job, and then I found myself complaining because the lunch was horrible, but at least the lunch at the old place was good, right? So there's a lot of us that can relate to the posture of the Israelites, right? And to grant them mercy, right, in that moment, they had been in bondage for an extremely long time. So I get it that you have certain thinking habits, right, that come with where you've been, right, even into that new place. Now, here's what we know about situations, right? Situations, they have this ability to reveal the conditions of the heart, but they can also reveal the conditions in the heart, right? So the impatience and the pride that the Israelites have reveals the condition of their heart, right? It reveals the pride that's there. It reveals, the issues that they have in their heart, right? But then we've got this other thing that it's revealing about the conditions that they require to really love God, to really depend on him. Are you catching it with me, right? So I'm cool with being set free, God. I'm cool with following you and being led until you don't give me meat. Until I start experiencing some type of discomfort. Now I've got like a requirement, a condition. I'm only secure in you when I have all of these other conditions met. The conditions are really what keeps me secure, not you, God. The provision is what really keeps me secure, not you, God. And that feels like such an awful, horrible thing to admit out loud. So I'm not here to call you out. I'll call myself out, right? So I've been Leah. I've been the one trying to shuck and jive and dance and do all these things, thinking that it was me reflecting like a love and a zeal for God, when really it was oh my gosh, here's my daddy issues coming up. Oh my gosh, here's perfectionism coming up. Oh my gosh, here's my rejection from people coming up. And I'm treating God the same way because I think that he's looking at me like people look at me. And why wouldn't he? He's the God of the universe. Why wouldn't I have to prove to him and do for him daily to show that I'm grateful for him? When I didn't even have to do all that stuff when I got saved. It was something that I struggled with for a really long time. I was so insecure about just being his, right? And then this is something I wrestled with recently. Like the Israelites, I've been secure in his provision and not secure in him. To pray for things and wait for things that maybe they didn't come or it didn't look exactly like I wanted it to, and realizing, oh my gosh, my love for him is conditional. And it sounds awful to say, but we got to get real with ourselves. And it's so critical for us to address this because as you pursue more, as you chase after more, there is going to come the temptation to abandon more, to forsake more. There's gonna come, you're gonna like experience this zeal, right, to do for God and be all that he called you to be. We can easily get tripped up and downright tired because you feel like I'm performing and jumping through these hoops for a God that we imagine is never satisfied with our performance. Or it could come from, you're praying for, let's say you're an entrepreneur, right? You're taking this entrepreneurial route and it doesn't look exactly like you thought it was gonna look. The success takes longer. Growing the email list takes longer. You not being afraid of people and them rejecting you takes longer than you wanted it to. And now I realize, well, God, I trusted you if it went smooth. I trusted you only if I wasn't unemployed for this amount of time, right? I'm speaking for me, right? Like I'm in this journey right now and really having to swallow, man, I was secure in things other than. I was secure with what his hands could do. I was secure in what he would make happen. But if it didn't happen the way I wanted it to happen, now I'm not secure. Now I'm insecure. And so it's critical that we address this. It's critical that you face this, right? And be resolved. And I don't want to be insecure in my relationship with God. I don't want to be insecure in what he's calling me to, any of it. So how do we do that? How do we stop being insecure? First of all, to stop being insecure, you have to understand that it's a process. It's going to be a process. Even to now come into the knowledge of, oh my gosh, I think I might be insecure in my relationship with God, right? Insecure in that I'm performing, insecure in that I'm wanting certain things from him a certain way, right? It takes time, right? The Bible says to be transformed by the renewing of your mind. That's continual. Leah had weak eyes probably all her life. So there was a deficiency, there was a deficit view of her all of her life. It's going to take a second. It took her 4 kids to really realize, you know what? I'm not performing for anybody anymore, right? The Israelites, it took them a second, right? It took them, 40 years, right? We don't want it to take that long, right? But understand that it's a process. Now, two things that I want you to pray, right? So 3 things total, but the second thing is you have to pray, deliver the Egypt out of me. So when we leave Egypt, like the Israelites, when we leave our bondage, right, and don't get entangled in it again, or we work to not get entangled in it again, we have to pray, okay, I'm out of the mess, but now deliver the mess out of me, God. There are certain habits that I have. There's certain ways that I think. There's certain inclinations that I'm inclined to. Deliver Egypt out of me. Don't let me be in this new place craving meat just because I'm used to meat, even though that was my place of bondage and enslavement. We have to pray, God, get it out of me because it came with you clearly. They had been delivered out of Egypt, and yet so much of the habits and the mindset of Egypt was in them. It's why people win the lottery and they go broke within a couple years because the broke ain't out of you. The poverty mindset ain't out of you, even though you're in a new place financially, right? So you got to pray, deliver the Egypt out of me. You have to earnestly ask God, look at me, examine my heart, take the habits of the old thing out of me so that I can really receive and walk in this new thing that you're calling me to. And the last thing that you got to do, not really the last, but of the 3 things we're going to share today is you got to ask God to change your appetite. That's something that it's a prayer that has really blessed me, in that God, while asking, right, the deliver from Egypt, right, deliver the Egypt out of me, bind Egypt, but loosen a new appetite. Help me to crave what you crave. Help me to want what you want, God. Help me to view you in the right way. Help me to crave just being with you and not just doing for you. Help me to just want you and not what you want to do for me. Change my appetite. Change what satisfies me, because appetite and satisfaction go hand in hand. You can only be satisfied according to the appetite that you have. And so changing that appetite is going to change that satisfaction. It's going to change the way that you view your relationship with God, the way that you view what you require of Him, even, so that you can finally be enough and He can finally be enough. And you can finally be secure in that. So to take this topic a little bit deeper, I have 2 questions that I want you to reflect on. The first of which is, if God were to say, daughter, son, I don't want you to do another thing. I just want you to receive my love. Don't do another thing. How uncomfortable does the thought of that make you? Does the idea of sitting on your hands and just being His child, does that make you uncomfortable? Ask yourself why. Pray with God concerning why it makes you uncomfortable just to receive from Him. It doesn't take away the responsibility we have to do what we're called to do, right? But just, if He were to say, just let my love adorn you, do you find yourself frustrated at the thought of that, of not being able to do or perform? And the second question I want you to consider is, if you're praying for something right now, if God didn't answer that prayer, how would you really feel? Would you feel like you were in trouble? Would you feel like God lied? How would you feel? And it's okay to be human and experience emotions and disappointment and sadness. But I want you to really dig deep and let God show you your heart. Show you if your prayers come with conditions. Show you if your love for Him has conditions. Not because you intentionally want it to be that way, but because we want to get rid of anything, right? Any of the static that could keep any distance between us and the Father. Because to keep going for more, to receive all the more that He has for you, we got to let Him go deep. Thank you.